2, 1, go.
What is going on, everyone? This is Zach back here with another episode of Clutch Crew Sports, and we still got 2 weeks until the Super Bowl. So we have two episodes planned until the big game. But for this episode, we're going to go back to last year and take a look at the quarterback situation for every single NFL football team out there. We're going to divide them up and talk about them. And we also are going to talk about the losers from this past weekend and some parts how they lost and also where they go from here. But before we do that, let me introduce you to the rest of the crew.
What is going on, guys? It is Connor, the co-host with the most, and unfortunately for my dad and family from New York, the Buffalo Bills did not make it. They lost on Sunday, so in a little bit of an embarrassing form. So that wasn't too good, but I'm still excited to be back here to talk about it, and especially since for the first time in a long time there could be some serious questions about the Steelers when it comes to quarterbacks. So I'm excited to get into this.
What's up, guys? It's Nate here, and yeah, like Connor said, it's kind of my team is in a weird spot as well. I'm not used to having to talk about the quarterback situation in New England, but we're doing it for the second straight year now. So, looking forward to talking about that and some of the crazy stuff that went down in the playoff games yesterday.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and get things started. And before we go through all these teams, we'll just kind of explain how we came up with this format. So we wanted to divide every single team into three categories. And for this first one, I have like two subcategories for it. But basically, there's the no-brainers, right? And I'll go ahead and say the for sure no-brainers. This is the first subcategory. So we have Joe Burrow with the Bengals, Josh Allen with the Bills, Russell Wilson with the Seahawks, Lamar Jackson with the Ravens, Baker Mayfield with the Browns, Patrick Mahomes with the Chiefs, Kyler Murray with the Cardinals, and Justin Herbert with the Chargers. So that's all you're going to hear if you're a fan of those teams, and be happy because you guys have quarterbacks for the next 5 to 10 years with some of these cases. So those are like the first set of no-brainers. And then also, too, we have a set of questionable teams, and we have a set of for sure there's no chance that their starter from last year is coming back. They're definitely getting a new quarterback. So we have those teams in their own category as well. So let me go ahead and just go through the rest of the no-brainers here. The ones I've already said are the no-brainers for the next 5-10 years. But these other no-brainers we believe are no-brainers for this upcoming season. But after that, they could become a questionable. We don't know. And those are going to be Daniel Jones with the Giants, Matt Ryan with the Falcons, Ryan Tannehill with the Titans, Kirk Cousins with the Vikings, Jared Goff with the Rams, and Derek Carr with the Raiders.
Which,
And
on a quick
then,
side note, is a complete shift from last year when we did this. Can we? Because
oh, I
we
know we
wrong
were too hard
we
on the
I know we
yeah.
wrongly assumed that the Raiders were for sure going to have a new quarterback, and here we are 1 year later having them in the no-brainer category. So,
Yeah.
whoops.
Yeah, Carr definitely had a much better year. I think we were just a little bit aggressive with that call for sure. They should have been in the questionable,
Well,
but
probably because last year the fact that there were so many quarterbacks on the free agent market that we were
that's
like,
true.
"There's."
Yeah,
That's probably why we were.
yeah. I'm pretty sure I picked them to get like uh, some Teddy Bridgewater maybe or something like that,
I think
or
I had them taking Mariota or something like
yeah,
that.
which they actually did get Mariota, but he's their backup. So, uh, and then also too, I've got two highlighted teams, and those are going to be Tom Brady with the Buccaneers. So those of you wondering why isn't he said Tom Brady yet? Now, okay, there he is. He's still on the no-brainers list. And then I have Jimmy G with the 49ers, but I have these two kind of singled out for more of an analysis because they're not as lock of a no-brainers as the others are. So I'll start with the Buccaneers and ask Nate this first, since he's the Tom Brady fan. Um, so Nate, if Tom Brady and the Buccaneers win the Super Bowl, let's say they end up winning the Super Bowl, do you think that there's a realistic chance that he retires after that game, or do you think he comes back? What do you think is going to happen, assuming they win? Because if they lose, you assume he's going to come back and try and avenge the loss. But let's just say
Right.
they win. That makes an opportunity, like Peyton Manning had. Not comparing him to Peyton Manning because they're at different stages. Peyton Manning was far less effective than Brady is right now. But what do you think happens, Nate?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely kind of like a situation that very few guys have ever been in to, be able to have the chance to go out, number one, go out on your own terms. But me personally, just having, watched him for so long, and obviously I have no idea what's going on in his head, and there's probably only a couple of people that do, but I would think that even if he wins, I would think he stays around. I mean, him and Gronk have said they're already planning to come back next year, which that was a few weeks ago when players change their stance and that type of stuff all the time. But to me, it just seems like he just likes the game too much, even at 43 years old. I think he just enjoys the preparation and going out and winning and executing and all that stuff. So I think win or lose, I think he stays around and plays at least next year. I think obviously he still looks to be, age has really had no effect on him. It seems like so he can basically keep playing as long as he wants to almost. So I don't know, I think even if they win, I think he'll come back and try and do it again with the Bucks.
I'll ask the same question to Connor then. Do you agree with Nate that you think no matter what he comes back, or do you think there's that chance that he does retire if they win?
Yeah, well, I mean, like Nate said, there's very few people that have been in this situation to where, it's like, oh, okay, if I win a Super Bowl, I can go out and, just retire on a high note. And, you know, there's a lot of other quarterbacks this year that I probably would have said yes, they would have retired if they won the Super Bowl. Like, if the Steelers had won the Super Bowl, then Roethlisberger probably would have retired. If the Saints had won the Super Bowl, Breeze probably would have retired. Rivers retired anyway, but like obviously if the Colts went to the Super Bowl, he would have retired. So, but I just don't think Brady will do that because he seems to be different from all those guys, and just the fact that like no matter how old he gets, he just still wants to keep playing. I mean, he's even said before that he wants to keep playing until he's 50, which I mean I don't think that'll happen, but because age is starting to catch up to him a little bit, but I definitely think one of the things that'll keep him around, even if they win, is the fact that Tampa Bay is still going to have a really good team. And I think it'll be comforting for him to know that, like, even if he were to start regressing, like, even more next season, I think he'll be comforted by the fact that knowing that, okay, I still have all these weapons around me and I can still be effective. Like, I may not, have to be the guy that puts up, you know, 4,500 yards and 40 touchdowns, but I can still be effective and win games with this team because that's all what he's all about. It's about winning. It's never been about the stats for him. It's always been about winning, and he can win with this team. And this team is built to win. So yeah, even if they win, I think he comes back. The only way that I see him retiring is, like I said, not at the end of this season, but like, I mean, who knows? He might continue on later. The only Tom Brady is going to retire when he regresses really bad. It's never going to be an age thing for him, I don't think. It's going to be when Father Time does catch up to him because Father Time is undefeated. When Father Time finally catches up with him and Brady has one of those seasons like Manning had in his final season, that's when he's going to retire. And he obviously didn't have that this year. So win or lose, I think Brady stays.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. I think he's going to stay, especially with what Connor said, where um, you just won a Super Bowl. And if you still feel like you can physically do it, even though he's already won 6 and potentially 7, what do you have to lose? Like,
why not 8?
So yeah, I think regardless, he will come back for one more year, and then after that, it's iffy. Then it's definitely a questionable situation.
Well, I guess after that, it's all about what team wants to give him a chance, right? Because I didn't talk about that. It's like, do the teams want him?
Yeah, that's also true. Because his contract's a 2-year contract, and then they'll have some decisions. But the next team we have on the no-brainers, this is the final one that we'll kind of highlight here, is the 49ers with Jimmy G. And this is this is something that I wanted to highlight and talk about, basically because I do think that there's an actual chance that that I don't think Jimmy G gets traded, but they end up bringing in a quarterback in a trade. There's a couple names out on the market right now: Stafford, Watson, or trade up in the draft to get one. I just believe that Shanahan feels right now that his team is so good, and they're just a more competent quarterback away. I mean, they did make it to the Super Bowl 2 years ago with Jimmy G, but they didn't win it. And I feel like he's feeling right now, if we can just get a good quarterback, then we can really maximize this and win a Super Bowl next year because the team around him is so good. So I do have a feeling, and they're not afraid to make big moves. They traded for Jimmy G in the first place. I didn't see it happening when they traded him. It kind of caught me off guard a little bit. I just as easily think they could do that this offseason and trade for somebody else. But Connor, what do you think about the 49ers? Do you think that this is a for sure no-brainer? Or you think are you leaning a little questionable on this?
I think this year, for me, it's a for sure no-brainer. I think next year, I mean, it's why they're in this category, right? I mean, I think next year is definitely a question mark for me, just because I feel like, obviously the 49ers went through a lot of injuries this year, both on offense and defense. I mean, they lost Nick Bosa, and I can never remember the name of the other lineman that they lost, who's also really good. I can't remember his name, but like they lost both of them to season-ending injuries. George Kittle only played in like 4 or 5 games this year. Jimmy G only played in like 4 or 5. Raheem Mostert missed a lot of games. Deebo Samuel missed a lot of games. So they were just completely ravaged by injuries this year, and no surprise they finished at the bottom of the stacked NFC West. But yeah, because at the end of the day, they did go to the Super Bowl with Jimmy G, and they were on the verge of winning that Super Bowl with Jimmy G at quarterback. Obviously, bit of a choke job there from the 49ers in last year's Super Bowl. But yeah, I just don't see any reason why they would do anything right now. I could see them I could see them maybe bringing in like a different backup, because obviously, I mean, they've seen CJ Beathard and Nick Mullins, and they're not going to be anything special. So I could see them maybe making some kind of move to bring in obviously Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton's not bringing an Andy Dalton type kind of quarterback, like a veteran quarterback that can be there as the backup that can take over if Jimmy G gets hurt again. But I feel like they just need one more year to evaluate their situation with Jimmy G, because, I mean, I would have said that this season was that one more year, but obviously all the injuries, not just to Jimmy G, but to everybody else, kind of threw this season in the garbage. And you can't really look at it from an objective perspective. So, yeah, I think they need one more year to look at Jimmy G, but then next year, yeah, if Jimmy G doesn't play well, or if Jimmy G gets hurt again, then I say they start looking elsewhere. Because I think it's just going to be too hard for them to trade for Deshaun Watson. Because yeah, if they can get Deshaun Watson, then I mean, who's going to say no to Deshaun Watson? But I just think it's going to be too hard for them, and I don't think they want Stafford at all, because if they're going to bring in another quarterback, it needs to be a young quarterback, not a veteran quarterback, to be the starter at least.
Yeah. So Nate, what do you think about this? Since I know you still like Jimmy G a little bit from his days in New England, do you still are holding hope onto him, or do you think it's going to be over for him in San Francisco, and they should just expedite the process now? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, definitely still kind of a fan of his. I would like it for him to work, things to work out there for him, but I don't know. I just haven't really been super impressed with his play the past couple of years. I know he's been hurt. He's missed, pretty solid amount of time. But that also isn't, really a positive in his favor. I know we can't totally control that, but, I know you can't have a quarterback that's missing all those games every year. So I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about this one. Kind of like what Connor said. I don't think they're gonna be put all the chips in to go get Deshaun Watson or Matt Stafford or anything like that. But I also don't think it would be a bad idea to go out and get bringing up some kind of other quarterback, either through free agency or even draft somebody, because I don't think Jimmy G is the answer in San Francisco. I would like him to prove me wrong this year, but I haven't seen enough out of him to really justify that, and especially because they do have the weapons there, and like George Kittle and Ayuk look promising this year, and Debo Samuels, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, with those kind of weapons, you really got to produce, and he hasn't put up the numbers for me to feel like, he's the guy. And especially with that roster, when they get those guys back from injuries next year, they're gonna be in position to contend for the West again, I think. So I think you can't have your quarterback being the last piece holding you back there in San Francisco.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think they
So
should probably, at least explore a new quarterback.
yeah, I'll keep an eye on this. We'll see what happens. Maybe later down the line, if they end up making a move, we'll look back on this moment. But until
Kind of
then,
like how we
Jimmy.
look back on the Raiders last year.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll see. That's why
Yeah.
this one, because it's an interesting situation there. But let's move now to these teams are definitely more in question with their quarterback. If they either keep their original starter from this year, or if they go and get a new quarterback, or maybe a quarterback on their team that was a backup who's going to be promoted to be the starter. So I'll start with the first team here being the Eagles. They obviously make this list because they have a really big decision. What are they going to do? Go with Carson Wentz or go with Jalen Hurts, who they started the last 4 or 5 weeks of the year? Um, if I were the Eagles, I would not start Wentz and I would start Hurts, because while I don't think Hurts is going to be a great quarterback, I do think Wentz, his success has come and gone. Like 2 years ago, I picked him to be the MVP, and he failed miserably at that. And then this year, he failed in a terrible NFC East division. He couldn't succeed for them, and he got benched. All the other quarterbacks got hurt. Daniel Jones got hurt for a couple weeks. Dak missed almost the whole season. Alex Smith, obviously, on and off with his injuries. But Wentz was benched. Now, that's what I think they should do. But what I think will happen is I do think they will start Wentz, because I feel like the owner and the GM are in love with Wentz, and I think they really want him to succeed, so much to the point that they cut Doug Peterson like 2 weeks after the season ended, because they realized that Doug Peterson was not going to want to start Wentz. And I feel like they wanted to get in a new coach, and they got a coach. I forgot who he was already, but they got basically like a yes man coach, I think, someone who you've never heard of, who's just happy to be an NFL head coach. And they're going to tell him to start Wentz. So that's what I think is going to happen. Do you guys all agree with me on that? Or do you think it goes to Hurts?
Yeah, I'm definitely in agreement with you that, like, I think it should be Hurts, but I think they're going to stick with Wentz because, like you said, they wouldn't have fired Doug Peterson if they were going to go with Hurts. Like you said, the owner and the GM want Wentz to start.
So, Nate, what about you? Do you agree? Nate, you there?
I think they would. Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're fine. We can hear you now.
Oh man, we're gonna get that vicious cycle.
Your internet, I think, keeps going out. Hello?
Oh, shoot, let me try and fix that real quick.
Oh well, now I can hear you.
We heard that fine. Yeah.
Okay, you can hear me.
Yeah, yep. Yeah. Did you agree with me or not?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of in the middle because I agree with that reason, but I also think that Wentz, I would like personally for him to get out of Philadelphia because I think he's mentally not, in a good spot to be. I think the talent's still there, but just mentally is not in a good situation. I'd like to see him get a fresh start somewhere else, but I could also see with this guy, like you said, he's kind of a yes man, no-name coach who I could see him keeping the status quo and keeping Wentz around as well. So I don't know. I'm kind of in the middle on that one.
Okay. So we'll stick with Nate since you have some good internet right now, and we'll move on and
Yep.
Hear you talk about the Cowboys and Dak Prescott. What do you think? Talk to the Cowboys fans. What do you think they end up doing?
Speak for Eric.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hopefully Eric agrees with my take on this, but I don't know. I think they should. I know Dak wants a lot of money, but I think they personally should keep him around. I was never a big supporter of his. Um, Really, I didn't think he was all that until this season. The few games he did play in before he got hurt, he looked, really good. He put up huge numbers. Um, I think he showed that he does have what it takes to lead this team. He does want a lot of money, but I think, it's kind of those old things where it's like, who else are you gonna pay with that money? I mean, I know there's a lot of free agent quarterbacks coming out this year, but anybody better than him is going to be, getting just as much money. And anybody you're going to pay less is going to be a drop off. So are you willing to, take a worse quarterback than Dak to save a little bit of money? And I don't think that Jerry Jones especially should, want to do that. I think Dak should definitely stay around, no matter how much it costs. So that's kind of my take. I don't think it should be
Yeah.
a big question for Dallas there, but we'll see.
Yeah,
They have
I
surprised me before.
I know you never know. Like I think they will end up doing it, but I think they will end up going back with Dak and giving him a contract. But they rightfully are in this questionable because they should have given him a contract years ago, but they didn't. I think it will end up happening though because they saw what the team was without him, and I think Jerry Jones realizes he needs to win now. So, Connor, do you agree with Nate's take, or do you think they go elsewhere?
I mean, in my mind, the thing about Dak Prescott for me is that, he's definitely a good quarterback, no question, but I do think he does get overhyped and overrated a lot because they were looking at his stats this year and they're all like, oh, like, look at all these stats that he put up in, like, the 6 games or whatever he played. But a lot of those stats came in garbage time when, like, the other teams were playing prevent defense and, like, just trying to, get to the end of the game. I mean, we kind of saw that in the Chiefs-Bills game the other day where, like, the Chiefs had been shutting down the Bills all game, and then, like, right after the Chiefs take like a 23-point lead, they let the Bills go and march down almost unchallenged because that's just teams sitting back and playing prevent. I mean, it's what led to the Falcons losing that game. So I think his stats and everything are a little bit overinflated, but my only thing for the Cowboys with that is that I think they should keep him around just because, like, he's part of the offense and you don't want to have to, like, start your offense over again. I just don't know how they're going to afford him because they are, they are still in the positive when it comes to the cap, but only barely so. I think they're only like 8 million in the positive. So it means that you're going to have to make a lot of cuts elsewhere, especially if you're going to pay Dak the 40 million or whatever he wants a year. Then you're going to have to make a lot of cuts elsewhere. And especially for a team that has no defense, you can't afford to
Yeah.
be, paying Dak Prescott $40 million and sacrificing your defense again. Because even when Dak Prescott was starting, the defense was what was losing them those games. So um, it's just all a question of money for me. I
Mhm.
think they should in a way, but in a way I don't think they should either.
All right, and then let's move now on to another team here, the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they end up on the questionable list with Ben Roethlisberger, and I'll let Connor explain that and what he thinks will end up happening.
Yeah, I know the main thing here with the Steelers and Ben Roethlisberger is that it's a question of two things. One of these questions I feel like has been answered already, and that's the retirement question. Which, because I mean, it seems like Ben's always contemplating retirement, but I think he's pretty much already answered that he's not going to retire. They had a press conference where he was saying, like, I'm ready to come back. I'm ready to do it. I'm ready to fulfill the last year of my contract. Um, but the reason why I think this is in question is because I was talking about the Cowboys cap situation where they were only about 8 million in the positive. The Steelers are 28 mil in the negative right now. And the Steelers are going to have a lot of free agents this year, more than most teams. And especially if you're going to be in this, it's kind of a hard pickle to be in, really. If you're in this win now mode, then, you want to try and keep all the pieces together. But if you cut one of those pieces, being Ben Roethlisberger, then you're saving a lot of money because Roethlisberger has one of the biggest quarterback contracts in the league right now. So, in a way, him retiring might have been better for them because he would have saved them a bunch of money. So, um, I don't think the Steelers are going to cut him just because, like, I feel like that would be a disservice to him. He's pretty much earned, like, no matter what the Steelers' money situation is or anything, he's pretty much earned his right to retire a Steeler, or not be forced into retirement in a situation like this because, the Steelers need to cut him to save money. So I think he'll stick around. Obviously, also, the Steelers were in the Deshaun Watson talks until about a week ago when they signed Dwayne Haskins. So Deshaun Watson is off the board. The Steelers wouldn't have been able to afford him anyway, probably, unless Roethlisberger did retire, which he said he wasn't going to. So, but they signed Dwayne Haskins as the backup. So, although I think it's still a little bit in question, this one is definitely kind of starting to lean more towards the no-brainer category here.
Yep, and I'll move on now and talk about the Packers here. And this was a just one day ago shift. A couple of these teams shifted in the past couple of days, but actually this is like past couple of hours. I decided to shift this to the questionable because of really just my reasoning for moving this to questionables, like what Aaron Rodgers said after the game. It felt weird. It felt like it was something that you would say when you know your time is up. Kind of like thanked everybody and then was like, I don't know what the future holds. Like he didn't need to say that. Like if he was like, obviously they're gonna want him to come back. I don't think they would have just traded him based on the season he had. Being the MVP, they're not just gonna trade him. But if he wants to be traded, he add him potentially to the list of these guys because of maybe he's upset with the organization for drafting Love and just everything going around with the Packers. I think it's questionable, but at the end of the day, I do think it's all smoke. I think he comes back and starts next year for him. I just don't see it happening yet. So yeah, do you guys both agree with me there? And then we'll move on to the Panthers.
Yeah, I think Rodgers is kind of pulling a Ben Roethlisberger here.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to retire. I don't know. Like, yeah, he'll be back.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so let's keep it going now and talk about the Carolina Panthers. Actually, no, let's talk about the Texans first since they're
before we talk about all the outlying teams.
Yeah. So Nate, obviously we know what Deshaun Watson is, but tell us your opinion on if you think he gets traded or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think, in my opinion, I feel like he's definitely going to get traded. I mean, it's all rumors at this point, but he's, one of the articles I saw, he said that whoever they hire next as their head coach makes no difference to him, so they can go out and get, Eric Bieniemy or some great new head coach, and I think Watson still is going to want out. I think he just, it seems to me as an outsider like there's a whole lot of distrust between him and just the organization in general for what they allowed to happen to, really the prime of his career. I mean, he's still in his prime, but his first few seasons in the league under Bill O'Brien, they traded all those guys out from under him and basically didn't even give him a chance to win this year. So, I mean, I don't know. I think he just feels underappreciated, and I think he just wants out regardless. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I think it's going to be one of those situations where they're kind of like the Texans are going to be kind of forced into, trading him or else he'll sit out or something like that. So I think he's definitely out of there. I mean, for the Texans' sake, too, they don't want to, a quarterback that is really the face of their franchise and what they're going to run on and, have him be unmotivated to be there. They're just better off getting somebody who's not as talented, but is ready to buy into their system and the new changes they're gonna make. So that's just my take on it.
Yeah, let's go to one of the possible teams in play for Deshaun, and that'll be the Carolina Panthers. So Connor, go ahead and talk about if you think Bridgewater comes back or not.
Yeah, well, I will say that I do think it would be a really, I mean, honestly, it'd be a really good move for any of these teams to get Deshaun Watson, but I do think it'd be even probably out of all these teams on here, except for maybe the Dolphins, I think it would do the most good probably for the Panthers, just because, he kind of fits with that mold too of like, this is a young team, a young up and, the defense had its struggles this year, but the defense is coming up. They have a lot of really dynamic pieces on offense. Something that a lot of these other teams like don't quite have yet. But they've got DJ Moore is turning into a really good receiver. Robbie Anderson's one of the best deep threats in the league, and then obviously Christian McCaffrey is Christian McCaffrey. So, and I think they showed some flashes of brilliance kind of in the middle of the season with Teddy Bridgewater, but I think everyone kind of knew that Teddy Bridgewater wasn't really going to be the guy that was going to take them anywhere. I think everybody knew that he was just going to be a placeholder. And, Bridgewater plays a very similar game to Watson. It's just that Watson's way better at it. So I think he'd be a fantastic addition for the Carolina Panthers. I think, he would really fit into this offense. It really goes well with him. Because like I said, Bridgewater is basically a worse version of him. So the offense is already built up around him. The Panthers also don't have any head coaching problems. I know the Jets are on here, which is where Watson said he wanted to go. The Panthers have, they look like they have their head coach for life right now. They're in love with Matt Rule. Obviously, like I said, these other teams, the Jets and the Bears, are having head coaching questions or issues. So, yeah, I think it'd be a great move for the Panthers. And the thing is, they also have the money to do it. They're still in the positive on the cap. So if they wanted to make the trade for Watson, then I think they can do it.
I know one of our fans, Jackson, would be very happy with that. He's a big Panthers fan. Let me go ahead and talk about the New York Jets, one of the teams Connor talked about, another rumored spot for Watson, because apparently that's where he wants to go the most. So I do think
don't
the
know
Jets,
why, but
yeah, I do think the Jets will end up moving on from Sam. And really, I was torn on this one, but the fact that they're now seriously contenders with the Watson deal, because I do think actually, if Watson does get traded, I think it will be to the Jets, because they have the number 2 overall draft pick, and they'll throw in a bunch of other draft picks probably. And that's probably the best deal the Texans will get, especially with the number 2 pick, because that's for sure going to be a quarterback, and you're going to get your pick, other than Trevor Lawrence, obviously. But the rest of the field is not a consensus thing, and you want to make sure you have your pick. You don't want to have to get the guy that falls to you. You want to be able to get the guy you want. So I think the Jets do end up with the best package for Watson if they go that route, but also too, if they don't, then they have the number 2 pick, which I think would be a quarterback. There's a slight chance that Saleh, isn't like an offensive coordinator, that he just keeps the offense the same and gets the best player in the draft, like a tackle or something like that. But I do think it's more and more likely now the Jets move on from Sam and they end up going with a new quarterback. And next we'll talk about
I guess before you move on really quickly, I was going to say, from the Texans front office point of view, I think the Jets are the best option. Like, regardless of what Deshaun Watson thinks, I think the Jets are the best option for the Texans, because they have, like you said, they have the most to offer the Texans. And I think for the Texans, they need to take Eric's advice from from about a year ago with the Cincinnati Bengals, the Bengals. Just blow it up, start over. Accept the fact that you're going to suck, and just rebuild. And the Jets have the most to offer you in terms of draft picks and capital for the future.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so next we have another team, the Chicago Bears, and we've talked about Mitch before a couple weeks ago on the pod, but Nate, what's your final thoughts on if Mitch comes back or not?
Yeah, I think the Bears just got to move on from Mitch. I think the experiment is over. I don't think he's the guy for them. If they could go and get Watson, I'm not totally familiar with which picks and cap space and all that they have available, but if they could make Watson to Chicago happen, that would be huge. But regardless, they got to either draft or sign or trade for somebody and not have either Mitch Trubisky or Nick Foles starting week 1.
All right. And then we'll go down here to the Denver Broncos, another possible team. I've seen so many Photoshop jerseys of him in a Broncos uniform. I felt like I had to put the Broncos here with the line. So, Connor, Drew Lock's their guy for now, but will he be their guy next year?
Yeah, this is another interesting one. I kind of equate it to the, I mean, obviously the Broncos aren't on the same level as the 49ers when it comes to their talent right now, but I mean, it's kind of a similar situation to me in that, like, I feel like they almost kind of want to have one more year to evaluate Drew Lock because, again, Drew Lock was hurt this year for a good portion of it, and, you know, the Broncos offensive line didn't do a good job of protecting him at all, so he didn't exactly have time. Because I would like to see, you know, if the Broncos this offseason can get some offensive linemen to protect him, the Broncos have, you know, they have talent on offense. They've got Cortland Sutton. They drafted Jerry Jeudy. You know, they've got Noah Fant at tight end. They've got a running back tandem of Melvin Gordon and Philip Lindsay, who's who's, you know, on the higher end of running back duos. So I think they stick with him for one more year. You know, they can afford Watson, but I think in their minds, you know, John Elway loves his guys. You know, John Elway's, you know, he loves his quarterbacks that he picks, and he's going to stick with them till the end. And I think he's going to stick with Drew Lock because he was the guy that he picked. Obviously, none of those have worked out since he made that trade for Peyton Manning. That was the best thing he ever did for that franchise as an executive. But I think he's going to stick with Drew Lock because, like I said, it's his guy. He picked him, and he's going to ride with him until he can't ride with him anymore.
All right. Yeah, I agree with you there. And then finally, the final team on the questionable list is going to be the Miami Dolphins. So many possibilities with the Miami Dolphins. Like, they're kind of like the Jets because you have the quarterback from last year, Tua. You even have Ryan
Fitz.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it would be Fitzpatrick, but he's been there, so like you never know. And then they have the number 3 overall draft pick, just one below the Jets. And
which ironically they got from Houston.
Yeah, that would be so funny if they make that trade. If they trade Watson for the number 3 pick, oh my God, the memes. But okay, so I think I'll give 2 answers to this. What I think they should do is I think they should trade for Watson and give up the number 3 pick, give up a couple more first round picks. And Tua obviously also probably would be in that trade to Houston, because then also not only do you get Watson with a team that was already very good last year, Tua didn't play great and they still almost made the playoffs. Watson goes to a much better situation than he had with the Texans. Not only do you improve, but you also stop the Jets from potentially improving also. You prevent him from going to the Jets, and then you're in a division with Josh Allen, Deshaun Watson, and Bill Belichick. Like that's a scary place to be if you're a Dolphins fan, even with all the optimism they had this year. So I think they absolutely should, but I think the reality is they will go back with Tua because I think they do like him, and I think like we tend to really kill quarterbacks way too soon, and I think Tua is a case of that. I think obviously he was bad last year, but we would not even be talking about them moving on from Tua if they didn't have the number 3 pick and if Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow weren't amazing. If it wasn't for that, we would just assume Tua would be the guy. He would have been on the no-brainers page. So I think you have to take those guys out of the equation and just look at it. He was a rookie and he struggled, and that's normal. But it's just one of those things. It's becoming, a lot of teams move on from guys really early now. So I think that's why it's a question. But I think in the end, they end up keeping him. Do you want to say anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just agree with you that I think that they are going to hold on to them. And also, it's for Dolphins fans' sake, and also for the Dolphins as an organization, it's really too bad because in my mind, like, this would be the spot that he should go because, like you said, this is a team that was right on the brink of making the playoffs. I mean, they were still 10-6, even though they missed the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
But like you put Deshaun Watson on this team becomes an instant contender. Um, maybe like we're probably going to talk about them next year as like a possible playoff team again. Because we might talk about Tua is going to develop and blah 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 blah. But like if Deshaun Watson was on this team, this would be like, okay, now we're having a discussion like, between Bills and Dolphins for the AFC East crown, and also we're having a discussion: can they be the team that could possibly dethrone the Chiefs?
Yeah.
So, but like I said, I do agree with you that I think they're going to stick with Tua and not kill off the quarterback just quite yet.
Yeah. All right. So now we'll get to the final 6 teams that we've decided are going to be for sure new quarterbacks. We would be surprised if the starter came back. Some of these very surprised. So I'll start by talking about the
Gardner
Jaguars.
Minshew's definitely coming back, Zach. What are you talking about?
Oh man, God, I'm gonna have to listen through all the what if they take field stuff for a couple more months, but after that, then it'll be official. I can get my jersey, all that sort of stuff. But but yeah, the Jags obviously are gonna be taking Lawrence. This was Minshew's year to possibly make it his team, him being the franchise quarterback, but the team was bad, but he was also bad as well. And he does some good things. He makes the most of what he has, but he just doesn't have an NFL arm. And he's good for being a backup, but I don't think he even beats a backup on this team. I think they end up trading him to a team because they're going to want to bring in a veteran backup under Lawrence, and you don't want to have the backup be the guy that was the starter the past 2 years, basically. That's just a weird situation to be in. So I think his time in Jacksonville's up, and it's Trevor Lawrence season. Everybody knows it. So this is the one team on this list that the new quarterback who it will be. The others, you really have no idea. But for the Jags, it's pretty easy. They really can't screw this one up. Just take Trevor and
well, you would hope that they don't screw it up.
Yeah. So yeah, that's I won't have too stressful of a draft night like some other teams might. But Connor, let's hear about the AFC South rival Colts are on this list now with Phillip Rivers retiring. What do you think happens? Do you think I've heard Wentz being talked about to them, Stafford now. Like, do you think they trade for like another veteran like they seem to do with Rivers and continue that pattern, or did they go to the draft finally and get their next guy since Andrew Luck?
Well, I don't think they're going to go to the draft just because I don't think they have a pick where they can be comfortable enough to think like, okay, we're going to get the quarterback that we want at this spot. Just because they made the playoffs and everything. If they'd been in a situation where like the Dolphins or some of these other teams that just missed out, then maybe you'd be in a better spot. But once you make the playoffs, I think for most teams, that's a sign that you're like, okay, unless we're going to trade up, which I don't think that the Colts are going to do, we're not really in a spot where we think that we can be comfortable and we're going to get the guy that we want. So I will say that I probably would have not had too much of an idea of who I thought they were going to get before the Matthew Stafford news came out, because I do think they're going to go and get Matthew Stafford, because this is a team that, it seems like we're talking about them. I mean, it's kind of what they did last year with Rivers, that this team is still in the same mindset that they want to win now. And, they're not looking to build for the future because, they've already done that with, building up that defense and drafting Jonathan Taylor and getting all these young players around the quarterback position. And in their mind, it's like, okay, they're kind of taking the opposite strategy almost to what most teams do, where most teams, they get the quarterback and then you build the team around the quarterback. This team is building the team and then trying to get a really good quarterback and plug it into the team. And I think Stafford would be the right choice because Stafford has always been, that really good quarterback on a really crappy team. So, and I think he's a little bit different from Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers was really at the end of his career, and he played better than I'm sure a lot of people thought he was going to play. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of people that pretty well everyone who wasn't a Colts fan knew that they weren't going to get it done. I think they have a better chance of getting it done with Matthew Stafford because Stafford definitely still has years on him. I mean, this is going to be his 12th season that he's going into, which, quarterbacks these days seem to be playing into their, 20 plus seasons. So
Mm-hmm.
Stafford is kind of just at the tail end of the prime of his career. He's definitely not in the prime of his career anymore, but he's just kind of on the tail end of it. So I think Stafford would be a really good piece for this team because all the other pieces are there. It's just a quarterback, and the Colts are. I think they'd be deadly with Matthew Stafford.
Yeah,
So
I do not want the Colts to get Stafford for sure. Okay, so we'll go on to the next team here, the New England Patriots, Nate's favorite team, also on this new quarterback list. So Nate, talk about the situations and possibilities for the Pats' next quarterback.
Yeah, so I mean, it definitely sounds like, by all measures, Cam Newton is out of there. It sounds like they don't have a whole lot of confidence in Jarrett Stidham, so I think they're definitely gonna make a pretty, large investment in the quarterback position this offseason. I know Connor talked about Matt Stafford of the Colts. That's somebody who I personally would like to see in New England. I think the fit makes sense for the Pats. I don't know so much about, they're not the um, guaranteed Super Bowl contender, like destination team anymore. So it might be easier to get Stafford to sign with a team like the Colts. But if they can make it happen, I would like a guy like that to come in and what he's capable of. He's a veteran guy who can. He's worked with, I think, worse rosters than what the Pats are going to have going into the next season. So I definitely think he could come in and put them in a position to be at least competitive again in the division. But outside of Stafford, there's definitely more places they could go. Obviously, Deshaun Watson's kind of a pipe dream. I don't know that Belichick really would go all in on a guy like that, but who knows? He's kind of towards the end of his career, anyways, so maybe he will go shoot for the fences. But I think if they don't sign somebody, I would really be curious to see what they do in the draft because who knows? They could also trade up there and go for somebody, one of like third or fourth, ranked quarterback in the first round, maybe something like that would be of interest to them. So I don't know. It's obviously it's hard to know with Belichick out of any of these coaches. He's always, traditionally been very mysterious.
Just
But
ask fantasy owners with the running back situation.
oh yeah, it's like we could talk about this for an hour and he'll come out and do something crazy and different than what we talked about. But me personally, I would like to see Matt Stafford fill that spot next year.
All right. And then next, I'll talk about the Detroit Lions. Obviously, they end up on this list because Matt Stafford is mutually parting ways with them. They've agreed to find a new home for him, so he's not going to be a Lion next year, which is going to be weird. Kind of like the Rivers saying, you're just so used to him being a Lion, but he's going to be a new uniform next year. And as far as the Lions go, um, honestly, I don't know. I think they're going to end up. They're not a destination team because out of all these teams we've talked about, they have the worst roster. They have a decent draft pick, which they could use on a quarterback, but honestly, I could end up seeing this team being like the unofficial tank team that everybody thinks is tanking, and they end up getting some like Jacoby Brissett or something like that as a quarterback next year, like something out of the blue, and then they end up sucking so bad next year that they end up with like the number one pick. I just don't think
I've been high for someone like Sam Howell or someone.
Yeah,
year,
Like... I think next year for them in the draft. I mean, maybe they take a guy this year, but I don't know. The Lions are going to be a huge mystery as to who it's going to be. I have really no idea. And then we'll move on next to the New Orleans Saints. So this is another team we talked about on the podcast, what they will do with the quarterback situation. But now all options are on the table here with the Saints. What are they end up going to do? What do you think, Connor?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll just keep this pretty brief since we already had a pretty lengthy discussion about it last time. But I mean, I just, I like Eric said last week, I think it'd be a good idea for them to try and find other options, like trying to find a free agent or trying to maybe trade up in the draft or something. But free agency is really not a realistic scenario for them, considering that they're like over 100,000 in the negative in the cap. So it really is just going to be Hill or Winston, and going by what we talked about last week, it's looking like it's going to be Taysom Hill. So, I mean, it could still be Winston. Who knows? But it's going to be one of those two because free agency's off the table. And, unless they somehow manage to trade up, you're not going to get a quarterback at number 30.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Hill versus Winston.
Yeah. All right, and then the final team here on this list, we'll see. Maybe they'll have a new logo and mascot next year, but the Washington football team is going to be getting a new quarterback, most likely. So, Nate, talk us through that, their options. What do you think will end up happening with the Washington quarterback? Who will play football who will play quarterback for the football team?
Too many football words here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, obviously, they're on the side for a reason. Is I don't think anybody on their roster right now is going to be starting. Week one, even, his name is already escaping me. The guy from their playoff, when everyone was
Heineke,
like, give him a chance next year. Yeah, Heineke. That's what I was going to say, but it didn't sound right. But yeah, Heineke is not gonna be the week one starter in Washington. I really don't know what they're thinking as far as the quarterback position, because obviously they need one, but they're not in a position, to draft one in the top 5 picks. And to me, it's not really worth, I personally wouldn't draft a guy, in a later first round pick and expect him to come in and start week one. That's usually those guys are more like developmental picks, kind of something in there. So I think I would expect them to sign somebody in free agency. As far as who exactly, I'm not entirely sure. I don't think it's going to be. I think Stafford's going to go somewhere either, working more likely compete. So I think they're probably out of the running for one of the top couple of guys. But somebody like saying, I'm trying to think who is in the lesser tier, but I would say like a middle tier kind of a guy like Teddy Bridgewater, or someone like that could be. Would make sense for Washington. They need somebody that's like, they have decent enough talent. Obviously, they made the playoffs in a weak division, but I think they even get a serviceable quarterback who actually puts in the effort, unlike Dwayne Haskins, and who's not 37 coming off of one of the worst leg injuries I've ever seen in Alex Smith. I think anything's an upgrade over that. So personally, I don't know, really.
Yeah,
I mean,
some of these you don't know,
Colts,
but
yeah, like for the Colts and the Pats, it
Yeah,
was clear like, you should go get Matt Stafford, but it's like I don't think he's coming there, and you know, anybody is better than what they have right now, so
Yeah.
it's really an open board for me.
yeah, the Lions and the football team are definitely the two biggest question marks right now for sure.
yeah, really. So we're gonna
Right.
end the episode off. We got through that segment. We're gonna end the episode off now talking about the losing teams from this past weekend, um, being the Packers and Bills. And I'll start with the Packers, and you guys can chime in too and your thoughts on this. But basically, after the game, and basically for the Packers, we're just gonna be talking about this Twitter poll that I made that went kind of viral on the trending page of Twitter for 5 minutes. But basically, it was a simple poll that drew a lot of attention. Should Matt LeFleur be fired? And we ended up with 214 votes, the most votes ever on one of these polls. And 65% said no, he should not be fired. 35% said yes, he should be fired. And I just screenshotted some of these funny comments. I won't read through them all, but if you're on YouTube, you can read them, or go to my Twitter account, GuacFoLife, GuacFolife. You can read it there. But I really raised this poll question because I thought it was a legitimate thing for the Packers to consider because of how egregious his decision to go for it or not go for it. I mean, on 4th and goal at the 8-yard line with 2 minutes left, when you're down 8 points, like, it was just a terrible decision. And Rodgers, after the game, he was like, it wasn't my call. He didn't like it. The Buccaneers players were saying after, they were shocked. They couldn't believe it, what they were doing. Um, I'm pretty sure the fans didn't like it. And it was just a scratch your head moment. What are they doing? And not only this, but like, I've seen people on Twitter say that this was the worst coaching decision of in NFL history, this decision here. So I don't know. I haven't been around
Worse
as
than
long.
not giving it. Not worse than not giving it to Marshawn.
Yeah, that's definitely up there. I'm not gonna go that far, but like, it was bad. It was really bad because at least with the Marshawn thing, like, at least, if you threw it, you had a chance to win. But like, you literally did a play where you give up your chance to win. So I don't know if it was the worst, but I definitely think, and you guys know me, we all have our kind of stuff that angers us a little bit more than most people would get angered by. But for me, it's always been clock management, not using timeouts, not being aggressive enough. And this wasn't even an aggressive or not thing, because obviously everybody would have gone for it, but Matt LeFleur. So those are the things that make me mad. And to be in the NFC Championship game, you have Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback. It's not like you had some backup quarterback in the game. You had Aaron Rodgers. You just needed to get 8 yards to get the touchdown and then the 2-point conversion to tie it, because even with kicking that field goal, you still have to go and score a touchdown, and there's no guarantee you get the ball back. Just kind of kicking it off to Tom Brady in the last 2 minutes, that's like, what are you doing? Like, do you not know football? Like, this is what I was thinking. So I think the decision was so bad. And here's the thing is, I can't trust people after they make stuff like this. After they do dumb stuff like this, I just can't trust them to lead a team anymore. I know the team has been to 2 straight NFC championships. I know his record is amazing and all that, but these are basic things and prime responsibilities of the head football coach to do. And he just showed me in this game how inept he is at situational football. And like, if they went for it and didn't get it, nobody would be having this discussion. But 35% agree with me, so that's a significant enough to make this. I'm not a crazy person just spitting out hate for Matt LeFleur here. So, and also Eric's not on the podcast.
This podcast loves to spew out hate for the Packers.
Eric's not on the podcast tonight, but he did tell me something like he thinks the Packers coach was dumb. I think that's what he wanted me to say on the podcast.
Yeah, he wanted us to get in that comment.
Yeah.
That,
he said they're
that
dumb,
Matt LeFleur was dumb.
So where do you guys stand on this? Like, we know what. I'll start off with Nate first, since he did a reply to my tweet. He disagrees with me about the firing part, but Nate, what do you think about Matt LeFleur? I just like saying his name, honestly. But Nate, what do you think about if he should be fired or not?
Yeah, I mean, I won't go as far as say he should be fired. I mean, obviously he's done a great job in the regular season. He's gotten them to 2 straight conference championship games, but at the same time, a big part of that is Aaron Rodgers, and they've got a loaded roster, with Devontae Adams, and they got a very solid defense. So it's like, you can't put all that success on LeFleur, because they really weren't that bad of a team when McCarthy was there. And that's kind of what I was talking about in my tweet. When I replied to your poll, it was, McCarthy had them, making the playoffs, and he didn't get any farther than LeFleur did, and that's basically why they fired him, is he couldn't get over the hump, and they felt like he was wasting Aaron Rodgers' career there in Green Bay. And I feel like LeFleur is kind of in the same boat, where it's obviously, I think it's too early you can't fire a guy as an organization that, after he just made 2 straight conference championship games, and he's only been there for 2 years. But, I think it definitely is not a good look for him. I don't think he's gonna win the Super Bowl while he's there. I think he's gonna, waste the tail end of Rodgers. Uh, you know,
I think Nate just dropped out. I don't hear him anymore. Connor, you there?
I know. Yeah, I can't hear
Okay.
him either. I don't know what's going on. So
Okay, he'll probably come back in a couple seconds. But Connor, just go ahead and start giving your opinion
you're
on
not.
this.
The sentiment is definitely.
Okay, Nate, we kind of lost you for like 15 seconds there. So we're just gonna move on to Connor.
Oh
We
shoot!
kind of
Yeah,
gotta get
yeah. I
on
said
some.
everything pretty
Sorry
much.
about that, but okay.
Yeah,
Connor,
no problem.
where do you stand on this? Should he be fired thing?
yeah, yeah, I'm definitely with Nate that I don't think he should be fired yet. I mean, you've heard it with me with the Steelers when like all those people are like fire Tomlin and everything. It's like because he can't get over the hump. He's kind of like the same as that McCarthy sort of thing. But it's just like who else are you gonna go out and hire right now? I mean,
Just
you know,
somebody that this is an entry level. Like if you are in an interview for a head coaching job, you get asked this question. You would be told to leave if you did what he did. I mean, like,
I definitely agree, but yeah, it's just definitely one of those things. It's like, who are you gonna go? I mean, they could go out and get Eric Bieniemy right now, but now that I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking of names, but um,
yeah,
Brian Daboll, but I don't think Daboll's gonna leave
yeah,
Buffalo, but. Yeah, I mean, it's just not quite yet. I mean, obviously that was like a really, really dumb thing. And I think pretty well everybody watching at home that, was paying even a slight attention to this game was thinking like, oh yeah, they're gonna go for it, and then all of a sudden like, what? Huh? Like they're not going for it? Like how many? Well, and also because some people will try and use the argument like, oh well, they still had the 3 timeouts and the 2 minute warning, but it's like, how many times do you ever see that work out? Like, where the
and it's not
teams
like they
that,
needed a field goal to win. They still would need a touchdown.
right, yeah, it's not like, okay, this puts you within like 3 points or with whatever. So that way now you just have to go and get a field goal. It's like, yeah, like you said, you still needed a touchdown. So, um, yeah, very, very dumb, but not quite time to fire him yet. It's only
Okay.
been 2 seasons.
Yeah. So let's talk about another team here, the Buffalo Bills, and I'll kind of just let Connor talk about what he wants to talk about for the Bills and the aftermath from this game.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess the biggest thing with the Bills is just that, this is a team that obviously, there's a bright future ahead for them. Sean McDermott made some also questionable calls during the game with not going for it on fourth down. He should have gone for it at the end of the first half when it was 4th and 2 near the goal line. And, he should have gone for it when it was like 4th and 3 late in the third quarter when they were down. It's when you're going against Kansas City, it's like you gotta be aggressive and go for it, especially in the playoffs. So there was that going on, but I guess the biggest takeaway for me from that game was just the way the defense looked to me, because obviously this was a discussion going into this game and into this playoffs really, that obviously for the Bills, their offense has been completely turned around. I mean, Brian Daboll has, him and Josh Allen have taken this offense to new heights, and it's one of the most prolific offenses in the league right now, especially with picking up Stephon Diggs. But, people forgot about how dominant Buffalo's defense was the past couple of years, really. Not just last year, but the year before, they had a really dominant defense too. And it's one of the reasons that kind of kept them in playoff contention was that defense. But now the defense is just kind of slowly getting worse. And it really didn't seem like to me at all. My dad was talking to me about this, with Leslie Frazier and the defense, is how, you know, they would usually on the first couple of possessions, the other team would look really good. They'd allow them to go down the field and, they'd score some points, but then Frazier would make adjustments and the defense would look a lot better. And it just seemed like Frazier didn't make any adjustments on defense in the game. Like, he kept going into the game. They had this plan that they were going to play soft coverage, force the Chiefs to try and run the ball, don't give up any big plays on first and second down. And then once you get them into like 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, then come up and play press coverage and be physical and, stop them from possibly getting any short, quick passes to, Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce and getting the first down. So, but it just didn't look like and the Chiefs were torching that. They were taking advantage of the off coverage. And then when they did go into the press coverage, they just used their speed to outrun the Buffalo defenders. And it didn't seem like Frazier made any adjustments throughout that game. And so obviously now there's been talks coming out that he's been interviewing with the Texans in their head coaching job. So I just wanted to, kind of pose the question of, there was a lot of people, obviously, and people would agree with me that if Brian Daboll had left and gone to a different team, that would have been a big blow to this team. But would it be a big blow to this team if Leslie Frazier decided to leave and go to Houston? Personally, I think no. I think they could do without him. A couple of years ago, I probably would have said that it would have been a big blow to them without Leslie Frazier. But I think they'll still be fine without him if he does go and take the Houston job, which obviously might not happen because this team is slowly morphing from, a heavy defense team to a big-time offense team. And, just maybe bringing in a fresh face can help put the defense in a position to where it needs to be to get them back to where they were this year and possibly the Super Bowl.
Yeah, we all agree with you with the Leslie Frazier thing. We talked about that before the podcast, how it's not going to be a significant blow for them, especially since they regressed this year. It wasn't like they progressed on defense. But I think my thoughts just on the Bills in general is kind of like, yeah, they're definitely had a lot more success than they've had in a long time, and they should be really optimistic for the future since they have a great young quarterback. But just kind of the thing that stood out to me with this game was the Bills were clearly the second best team in the AFC this year. And there's clearly a gap, and the Chiefs are on another level over everybody right now. And it's just going to be one of those things like, how much longer until one of these teams gets on the Chiefs level? Because after the game this past Sunday, they're not quite on that level yet. Maybe it takes one more year with Allen developing another year. Or potentially the Chiefs losing some pieces from their team, but it's just, kind of a scary thought to be a AFC team. Like, yeah, you have a great team, but you got to get past the Chiefs. Like, geez.
Which is unfortunate because all four of us are fans of AFC teams.
Yeah, I know it's a bad deal, but yeah, so that's gonna wrap things up for this podcast. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed listening and watching it, and next week we will be back with the highly anticipated Super Bowl blowout episode. So let's get ready for that one. That's going to be a fun one. We will have our picks for Buccaneers versus Chiefs, and there should be a lot of debates back and forth for a whole hour. So stay tuned for that. But until then, remember, guys, be clutch.
Bye.
See ya.
And for Eric, peace.